Tell me about jumping out of airplanes.
Well, okay, so funny story. When I was a PLDC instructor, Sergeant Major Wilbur V. Adams, the bear, my man, I love him so much, as we all do, right? He came to me. We were dedicating, in fact, Heather Smith and I were standing next to one another in the upstairs hallway of the new NCO Academy in Building 2. I helped move that thing down from the hill. But they were dedicating a wall of all the past, sergeants majors and all that good stuff. And Sergeant Major Adams walks up to me and says, "Hey, you want to go to airborne school?" Or no, I'm sorry. Heather Smith says to him, she's going to go to officer candidate school. And he said, "Wait, what?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about dropping my OCS packet. I was going to do it when I first came in the military because I had my degree. There were some circumstances that made me decide not to. But then at the NCO Academy, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it." And so Sergeant Major Adams, like the bear, he walks up, he gets right in your face. What does it take for you to stay in the NCO Corps? And me, not knowing him from Adam at that point, I was like, well, I'll go for broke. I want to go to airborne school, Sergeant Major, and I want to go to Fort Bragg. And he said, "Okay, be careful what you wish for, little girl." And I said, "All right, bring it." So the next day, I get called to his office and he tells me, "You're going to airborne school and I'm going to have HRC assign you to the CADE at Fort Bragg." Now, I went to airborne school, but I did not go to the CADE. They were like, "Nope, females don't go to the CADE. That's it. You're done. Not happening." Okay, so now I have airborne school under my belt. Okay, great. That was a great experience. I met some really awesome people, right? And then shortly towards the end of my tenure at PLDC, I got a phone call from HRC saying, "You're going to drill sergeant school." And I said, "Well, okay." But then I talked to everybody around me and they're like, "No, no, 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 no. You're already in a TDA assignment. You do not need a back-to-back TDA assignment. Don't do it." So I called HRC like a good mentored soldier and I said, "No, I'm not going to drill sergeant school. I need a platoon sergeant position." Well, Heather Smith got the drill sergeant slot and they sent my ass on recruiting.
No way!
Yes,
So you
I was.
graduated.
That was the only time I was pissed off in the military about a sign. I was like, "You MFers, man, you completely hosed me."
Marshall in the middle.
Hi there, how you doing?
Oh gosh, it's great. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's great to see you, Bianna Yeager, right?
Yes. Hey, I need to put a background in this. God knows I don't know how to do it.
Oh wow. So
Huh.
you're thinking about putting like a background behind you, like a fake screen or something, or
Yeah,
blurring
yeah,
it out or something?
yeah. It's been a minute since I've done this. Let's see here.
I had a fake background behind me for a while,
Yeah.
and over time I found that it looked like I had a fake background behind me.
Well,
So
we'll just continue on like this. How about that?
yeah, we can do whatever. We can do whatever.
Well, here's the thing. So things aren't so decorated in my place right now because I'm moving out because I'm about to. I purchased a camper van and I'm about to go travel the United States.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no. That's like super exciting, right?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I mean, it's been an eventful past couple of years, and it's something I've wanted to do. I said I was going to do it when I retired, and then just turns of events and stuff, and I'm ready to go do it.
What was your rank when you retired?
I retired as a first sergeant, but I was in a master sergeant position when I left. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
First Sergeant Yeager. That's so cool. That is
yeah.
so cool. Where are you from?
So I am from, Chicagoland area, but I was born in Sycamore, Illinois, a little farm town up north, northern Illinois. Um, Northern Illinois University, the Huskies, people probably know it more for that. But when I was young, we moved to the suburbs of Chicago. So I grew up, pretty much about 9 miles from the city.
Okay.
Yeah, I graduated from Schaumburg High School, which is known as Little Chicago, I guess. That's what we called it when I was a kid. So,
So you're about the same age. I was born in '68 and graduated in '86, and we're maybe you're a little younger than me. Maybe you're a little younger than me.
yeah, so I just turned 50 this year. So, yeah, I was born in 71.
Yeah, so you're not far behind me.
No, no, good times.
Yeah, right. Wasn't
Yeah.
our like we grew up in the last part of the like street lights and the riding your bicycle around and
Yes.
shooting guns in the woods and nobody messing with you, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. When the street light came on, you better be home or you were going to be grounded for the next 5 days.
Yeah, tell me about some times back then. Did you get in? Were you a rambunctious kid, or were you a tomboy, or a girly girl, or tell me about that?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to believe I was a girly girl.
Oh no, come on
Let's just
now.
say that. No, I was very much a tomboy. I grew up, uh, when I was little in Sycamore before we moved to the suburbs. My cousins and I would go out to my mom's uncle's farm and we played around, and I remember, linking hands and grabbing onto the electric fence, and my youngest cousin at the time getting zapped. And then we moved to the suburbs, and back then it was a lot of kickball and wiffle ball in the court and things like that. So yeah, it was really fun. Had a good time. We
It was
played like fast pitch up against the school brick wall, stuff like that. So
Isn't it wild remembering back to times when like Walter Cronkite was the one that was setting our culture, right?
yes,
And
yes,
that's both good and scary in the same way, maybe, you know?
yeah, yeah. You remember, and as a kid, I remember 60 Minutes being on, and and it was like, and that's the rest of the story, kind of things, and
Oh
all
yeah.
that. So
Oh yeah, it's a different time now. We look at things a little bit differently, I think, in our news and stuff.
yeah,
So look, I just got to hear about this. You're gonna move into a van?
yeah. So okay, so it's a brand new Winnebago Travato 2022. I didn't want somebody else's, used stuff, but yeah, well, look, the one thing I did in the military is I was single income, no kids. So I left with a good credit score and no bills, right? So I decided after some of the stuff I've been through in the past couple of years, health wise, that this is the time. My doctor said go for it, and I in the process of purchasing this camper. It's a Class B, so it's one of those Sprinter vans, 21 feet. It's got a bathroom, a shower, two twin beds, and will take me wherever I need to go in the city, out into middle of nowhere, solar panels, runs on a generator off the fuel tank. And so if I want to be around people, I can be. If I want to go out in the middle of nowhere and survive amongst the grizzlies, I can do that too.
Oh, that's like it's kind of a dream of a lifetime in a way. I guess you're getting to fulfill, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I won't go through the laundry list of reasons why I'm doing it, but I mean, one of the reasons is, since we're talking about military stuff here, is, being in the military, we have friends scattered all across the United States and then some, right? I can't get my camper van to Europe, but I sure can get it around the United States. And with COVID and everything else, and I have the opportunity now to go drive and see all the people I want to see, that we just never have the time to mirror up and just sit in the backyard and drink a beer and then move on to the next person and share stories and kick back and you know
I want to
whatever.
go with you. I want to go with you. That's so cool, right?
Everybody's welcome to join me if they want to. I'm
Yeah,
happy.
we'll all get a little caravan, a little convoy. We're
Yeah,
riding behind
why
each
not,
other.
right?
Yeah, that'd be a blast. That'd be a
I think it'd
blast.
be, oh my gosh, we would turn some KOAs upside down, I think.
Watch out! Watch out! So, tell me about your childhood and what got you to join in the army. You know?
Oh, well, without going into grave detail, I My father was in the Navy when I was born. He and my mom, before kids, they had been in Japan and whatnot. I'm the firstborn out of the entire family, actually, on both sides. I'm the oldest. But so my dad was in the Navy. I remember being a little kid. He was stationed in Rota, Spain. And I've kind of always grown up with fascination of, military life. My parents divorced when I was 3. So, my dad was kind of out of the picture for a long time. But when my mom remarried, we used to drive down to Florida every year. And every time we drove down to Florida on the highway, I'd always see these convoys of military vehicles. And I'd get so excited, And my favorite cartoon comic book was Beetle Bailey growing up. So I always had this kind of inclination that was what I maybe wanted to do. When I graduated high school, though, my mom, after my experience with my dad, he was military intelligence during Vietnam. He and his counterparts did missions over Russia. He knew like 7 different languages, did a bunch of interpretation and stuff like that. So my mom was like, I don't want you in the military. You're not joining the military. If you go to the recruiter's office, I'm going to tell them you're crazy. So I ended up going to Illinois State University for 4 years. I did a year of ROTC, and then I was like, I'm not going to join the military. You know what? I'm just going to have a good time with friends and do whatever. And of course, I worked for about a year out of college, and then I found my way to a recruiting station, and the rest is history.
Your mama didn't say you were crazy?
She was not pleased in the least. In fact, her and my stepfather said, if this doesn't work out, you're not welcome back home. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, and then when I retired, I told him, I said, I guess it's your fault that I stayed in 21 years because you told me I wasn't welcome to come back home.
Amen.
Yeah.
Were you a good soldier? Did you stand up straight and salute right and, do the right things?
So I was a good soldier. I mean, I knew how to march, and I ran fast and did push-ups. Sit-ups were a little bit of a struggle, but I got there. But it's funny, basic training. I've always been that person, like as a kid, remember when they told you, this is your brain on drugs and the egg fried in the frying pan? I believed that crap, right? So when I got to basic training, I had no expectations that it was going to be easy in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't like a Private Benjamin, Goldie Hawn, like idea of it. I was ready for drill sergeants to be in my face, cursing me out, running through mud and everything else. Basic training was not so bad. I was good. I followed the rules. I did what I was supposed to do. That was it. I got to AIT, and there were other people who had been there for a while, and you started realizing like, oh, there's some people getting away with some stuff. And I probably shouldn't, well, why not? We're all retired now, right? So in AIT, there was a group of us little scallywags that would sneak out when we didn't have a pass. We would jump the fence, and we would go down on Dyer, and there was a bar that we would go into, and we would drink beers, and then we'd come back and climb back over the fence and be ready, before the drill sergeants did checks.
Oh, that's great. So you were up on Logan Heights?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, Logan Heights. Let me tell you. Logan Heights, the runs on Logan Heights were probably the reason why I ended up running as fast as I did. I just wanted to get it over with.
What year did you come in the Army?
1994. November to be exact, like Thanksgiving weekend, November of 1994.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. I think it was like 3 days after Thanksgiving. My recruiter picked me up, shoved a bunch of bananas in my face and said, you need to gain. I was underweight joining the military. And he was like, eat as many bananas as possible so you make weight when we go in so you can ship.
So how tall were you and how much did you weigh? Can I ask?
So 64 inches. I've shrunk a little because, rucksacks and jumping out of helicopters and planes doesn't help your spine very much, right? But at MEPS, I weighed 99 pounds. And you had to weigh 103 pounds at 64 inches to join the military. And you could get a 3-pound waiver. So I needed 1 pound. So he gave me a pound of bananas. Now, it worked. I shipped. But just so everybody knows, 1 pound of bananas is not a good idea when it comes to digestion. It was not cool.
You spent some time getting it out the other end, huh?
I did, very much so.
Where did you go to basic?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so in November, I thought, this is great. I'm going to South Carolina. It's going to be warm, much warmer than Chicago. No. I found out the hard way that South Carolina does not mean that it's warm. When we did our field training exercise specifically, it was like sleet rain. There was lightning storms, the whole 9 yards. Our little pup tents, remember back in the day, we had to sew them together, 2 people to a tent. Me and my assigned battle buddy were in a tent. I wake up in the middle of the night. She's gone. She's gone to the warming tent. There's about an inch thick ice on the tent. I'm freezing. Now, mind you, remember I told you I'm 100 pounds. And I think I gained probably about 10 or 15 pounds of muscle mass in basic training. But still, I was freezing my butt off. And then the drill sergeants, and at that time, we didn't know who was in charge of what, right? The drill sergeants were the end all be all. And they finally said, this isn't safe anymore. We're packing up. Everybody get your stuff. Now, you know what it's like to roll up half a tent when there's an inch thick of ice on it? Yeah, that was brutal.
Oh, wow.
And we're like trudging. It's Fort Jackson, so we're on the side of the road in the, the trenches on the side of the road in the training area. There's water like 3 feet deep, and we're just trudging along. And oh my God, it was miserable. And finally, they put us underneath some overhangs on some bleachers, and they had to send buses for us. I kept saying, you're not going to get us all the way back to the barracks ruck marching at this point. Like, can we just call it? And then when we got back to the barracks, we were so frozen, all of us. Normally everybody's real shy in the showers. You're like, don't touch me. Man, everybody was huddled up like, I don't care. Everybody got under hot water. It didn't matter anymore. It's like, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's wild how when you get cold, you can't end up spooning or trying to get warm in some way.
Oh, and you don't care who it is,
Yeah. So, tell me about becoming a sergeant. What was your MOS?
So I came in the Army as a 24 Tango, which is, you were in charge of uprange and downrange systems, uprange, and then maintenance of the whole entire system. And then it was after my first duty assignment was South Korea. And then when I got back to the States is when they started the transition to 14 Echo, and then the 14 Tangos doing maintenance on their own launching stations. So in South Korea, I ended up, I was certified in the van, which is an interesting story because for 6 months, I was the #1 ECS crew with Echo Battery. And we went through RTEP, and General Bromberg was then Lieutenant Colonel Bromberg. And I got into a little tiff with a lieutenant in Foxtrot Battery over who was supposed to do something, which I can't obviously go into detail about. And unbeknownst to us, he was on the radio listening to everything. And he was like, break, 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 Cobra 6, shut it down, moving along. And I was like, oh crap. I turned to my lieutenant and I was like, oh, I am so getting an Article 15 over this. And long story short, he and the sergeant major saw me and called me over after RTEP had indexed. And he said, you're moving to the ICC. And I said, oh, crap. I got to talk to my platoon sergeant about that. He's like, no, you don't. And I was like, no, like I'm not supposed to talk to you. Like there's a whole rank structure in between me and you, man. Like I don't know about this. But yeah, so I ended up the last 6 months in the ICC holding a staff sergeant position and running some stuff, you know. But in terms of becoming a sergeant, I came back to the States. I ended up doing maintenance in 3-6. And, everybody told me that's the worst thing that could happen to you, go into the training unit and stuff. But I ended up serving with like the genius warrant officer of air defense, Chief Allen. He taught me everything he knew about maintenance because I was willing to learn. And anyway, from there, they're like, all right, you're going to the promotion board. And I had an NCO really just dig in. They put me in the PLL office for 3 weeks for me to study. And yeah, I got promoted. I went to PLDC, and James Ross, Command Sergeant Major retired, was my senior instructor. That was my first interaction with him. And when I graduated honor graduate, and they called me back to be an instructor. So yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
You're smart.
It's funny because as I was thinking about this whole talk we were going to have today, I actually had a sergeant major, a couple of them tell me, you're too smart, Sergeant Yeager, you need to dumb it down. And I was like, my mother would slap the crap out of me if I dumbed it down. So
Amen.
I'm going to keep doing what I do.
Amen. Good for
Yeah.
you. Good
Yeah.
for you. Wow. So yeah, so it was obvious that you were recognized early as being right and being so if you're right and loud in the right moment, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think the reason why they decided, in hindsight, I know now, because there were people in my class that were struggling with things like map reading and whatnot. And I stayed up with them, and I wasn't doing it for any personal gain. It was just, hey, we're all in a class together. I looked at it as a team and we want everybody to pass, And I think that Sergeant Major Ross, then Sergeant First Class Ross, I think he and some other people recognized that. And, that's how it ended up that they thought I'd be a good fit. They needed a female instructor. And so, of course, I don't know what the conversations were behind closed doors, but I mean, trust me, being a brand new sergeant, you needed to be a staff sergeant to teach. That was a point of contention for a lot of people. I had a lot of senior NCOs who were like, I can't even believe they're doing that. You're not ready. You're not this, you're not that. And, it bothered me a little bit, but once I got into the NCO Academy, folks were like, earmuffs on, don't listen to those people. You got selected for a reason. You're fine, So I took it from there.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So what did you teach?
I taught PLDC, and I was there almost 3 years actually. And I loved every minute of it. I'll tell you, I grew as an NCO probably more than I would have anywhere else, to be very honest. I was with people like Ben Williams, he was really like my guy. Like he was the first instructor that I taught with. He was the one who kind of mentored me through the process. And I remember one time him pulling me aside and just saying, hey, listen, these guys, a lot of these guys yell and scream and do all these things. He's like, look, you don't have to be all these other people. Just be you, And when he said those words to me, that just opened, I flourished from there. I was just who I was, and that was it. I had my sarcasm. I had my, my sense of humor. I applied my thought process on the knowledge you're trying to embark on people. And I just went with it, and 3 years went by faster than any other time I had in the military, to be very honest with you.
Oh, that's great.
It was awesome.
Tell me some of the stars that you taught. Were there any stars that you had that were PLDC students?
You know what? I'm going to tell you right now, I cannot remember names to save my life from all the way back then. But there are people who have contacted me over the years. You see them in the parking lot, you see them in units and everything else. But I don't know. I wish I could name a specific name from way back then. I'd have to pull out all my photos of class pictures to tell you, you know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah.
there's no doubt that every single one of them, whether they got out as sergeants or they went on to be whatever rank, that I mean, several of them contacted me after being in the class and said, like, you made an impact. Um, and I think that, whoever it was, whether it was a short period of time or a long period of time for them in the military, there's a lot of things that you get taught in the NCO Academy, especially in PLDC, that I feel like you take on into civilian life too, So all of our leadership concepts you can adapt to civilian life.
What was your favorite concept to teach in PLDC?
Um, I really love teaching leadership. I did, because I think that um, one of the things that I drove home with people was empty words mean nothing to all people. And if you're going to say something to a soldier, whether it be in counseling or or just in conversation, if you're asking a question, be willing to receive the answer. Whether it's, hey, do you know that regulation, soldier? And if they come back with what the regulation says, you can't meet them with some sort of disdain because they know it maybe better than you do, you know? Um, the other thing was counseling. So leadership and counseling, I think, go hand in hand, right? The counseling, the biggest thing for me was, if you don't know how to write, if you put a period after every third word in a sentence, find somebody, either learn how to write appropriately or find somebody to help you write your counseling statements. And there's no shame in that. Because when you come across a soldier, and we had a lot of people during our tenure that were coming in that had college degrees, that knew how to write. So if you were somebody, there's nothing wrong with having a GED or only having graduated high school. Where the problem lies is if you give a counseling statement to someone and they say, oh, well, here's a few typos, and you get angry about that, you've just destroyed your leadership relationship with that person, So I kind of highlighted some of that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And there's a myriad of other subjects that I love to teach too, but I think map reading was always fun. I always used to love using the classroom to demonstrate saddles and depressions. Depression was always my favorite one. Sergeant Major Bacon was the commandant when I was an instructor, and he intimidated everybody, to include myself. But I'll never forget him sitting in to observe my class during map reading, because he was very concerned about how people were being taught map reading. And I decided in my mind, I am not changing my ways with this man sitting in the back of the room. Not going to do it. So when a student had a question like, can you explain depression? And I said, okay, think of it this way. The tables are in this open shape. And I jumped up on the table and I said, if I'm on the side of the depression up here and I take a step off the table and I fall in, that's a depression. And it's, and I'll tell you, I thought for sure I was going to be fired after that. But he came up to me after class and he said, I love how you get down to, you don't just teach it by the written word, you try to show it to them too. And I'm like, I do the best I can, Sergeant Major. I mean, what can you do in a classroom, right? I mean, so yeah.
Isn't it awesome to get positive affirmation from your leaders?
Well, especially somebody like Sergeant Major Bacon, who's such an icon in air defense, I mean, before he came to be the commandant, I mean, everybody told stories about him in Germany. I hadn't been in Germany. A bunch of people were influxing because he wanted them to come to be instructors, all great people. And I was just like, oh my God, like he doesn't know me. And how am I going to fit into this family of Germany people? And you know what? I just was myself and it worked. So
what are some of your strong points?
My strong points, I think that I mean, I hate to say that PT is a strong, I hate that. I hate that we judge people on PT, but most of my military career until I battled health issues, I was strong at PT. Not in the sense like, hey, everybody's got to be a 300 PTer. My point was, I'm only as good as the weakest person in my formation. And that started from the time I was a squad leader. We all need to pass a PT test, or else I feel like I failed as a leader. So I was never concerned about how many 300 PTers I had. I was more concerned about how many people passed, right? Not by the hair of their chinny chin chin. I wanted them to feel confident that when they went to take their PT test, they were going to pass. I think the other thing that, especially during my first sergeant time, that I realized was my job, and a lot of this stems from mentorship from Sergeant Major Jeffries, is that you're no longer the one that has to be like hardcore PT and all that. You want to be good at it, but now you're the manager of the element, right? You're there to teach, coach, and mentor your platoon sergeants. And I think sometimes they felt like I was micromanaging them, but I finally had to tell them, I'm not micromanaging you. I'm teaching you to give me the feedback so I can provide you with the overhead coverage that you need. Because I've been there. I've been there with first sergeants who didn't have my back. So if you don't communicate everything to me, I'm not going to go and like run to the commander every time you tell me something. You have to tell me, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. If something blows up, a kid ends up on the carpet and me and the commander don't know about it, then I'm going to cut you off at the knees, dude. Because I'm going to give you 100% positive. And this is what I used to tell them. I'll give you 100% positive all the time. But just know something. If you screw with me, I'm going to give you 100% negative equally. So just let's do the right thing, you know? So I don't know. I think I was really good at, keeping up on everything that was going on with soldiers in the battery and soldiers in my platoon and whatnot. And just, I tried really hard to know more than just their name and their PT score. I wanted to know about their families. I wanted to know about, their likes, their dislikes, and yeah. So.
What did you want to be when you grow up?
What did I want to be, or do I still want to be?
Oh, tell me both. I want to know both.
Well, you know what? I've always been interested in comedy. I never thought that it was a possibility, but when I retired, I found out that it was a possibility, and I've spent some time doing improv at Second City and doing stand-up around Chicago fairly successfully. I got paid $10 one time, so somebody thought I was funny. What? So yeah, I mean, if I could be anything, I think I would be a stand-up comic that made everybody laugh.
I love it. I love it. So I would love to do the same thing. I would love to do a stand-up set. I explore, do a lot of things. So one of the things I would love to do is a stand-up set. I've developed a couple of little comedy games and things for groups and stuff. We're going to be making some new commercials soon with my partner. Where we have a little washer dry repair business, so we're going to do some commercials and stuff.
Yeah.
And I saw that you were doing the improv with Second City. That you got to tell me about that. That's really cool, right?
Yeah. So I mean, with everything, I mean, you pay money, right? Because they're educating you at the same time you're performing. But I have completed their conservatory program, and now it's just, COVID hit. So the whole progression to main stage and all that has kind of gone to the wayside. But Second City just went through a transformation. They have a new owner now. There was a bunch of issues with racial discrimination and things like that. So I've kind of backed away from it a little bit, but there are other places in the city that do the same stuff. I mean, they do improv and whatnot, but now I'm starting to get more focused on doing the stand-up again. And, I've got some friends who've been able to progress a little bit further than I have, but there's opportunity out there. And that's the other thing I want to do as I'm traveling around the United States is, hit some open mic nights and just see how things land, right? I mean, but contrary to popular belief, you get up on stage, more often than not, you bomb, right?
I can't imagine you bombing. You wouldn't bomb. So I know it's tough to put a comedian on the spot, but before we get out of here, you got to give me your best joke. You
Oh,
don't have to do it right now.
so well, maybe military wise, there's one joke that I told for one of my stand-up gigs. I was like, the military talks so much about sexual harassment and sexual assault. One day I went through a bunch of training on sexual harassment, sexual assault, and then the next day had to go and jump out of an airplane. And before you get on an airplane, they have, the jump master has to check you. And the first thing after he was done, he slapped my ass. It's like, so, I mean, obviously that's rough, but yeah, I mean, but that gets a great laugh when I, when I tell it appropriately. But
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about jumping out of airplanes.
Well, so funny story. When I was a PLDC instructor, Sergeant Major Wilbur V. Adams, the bear, my man, I love him so much, as we all do, right? He came to me. We were dedicating. In fact, Heather Smith and I were standing next to one another in the upstairs hallway of the new NCO Academy in Building 2. I helped move that thing down from the hill. But they were dedicating a wall of all the past, sergeants majors and all that good stuff. And Sergeant Major Adams walks up to me and says, "Hey, you want to go to airborne school?" Or no, I'm sorry. Heather Smith says to him, she's going to go to officer candidate school. And he said, "Wait, what?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about dropping my OCS packet. I was going to do it when I first came in the military because I had my degree. There were some circumstances that made me decide not to. But then at the NCO Academy, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it." And so Sergeant Major Adams, like the bear, he walks up, he gets right in your face. What does it take for you to stay in the NCO Corps? And me, not knowing him from Adam at that point, I was like, well, I'll go for broke. I want to go to airborne school, Sergeant Major. And I want to go to Fort Bragg. And he said, "Okay, be careful what you wish for, little girl." And I said, "All right, bring it." So the next day, I get called to his office and he tells me, "You're going to airborne school and I'm going to have HRC assign you to the CADE at Fort Bragg." Now, I went to airborne school, but I did not go to the CADE. They were like, "Nope, females don't go to the CADE. That's it. You're done. Not happening." Okay, so now I have airborne school under my belt. Okay, great. That was a great experience. I met some really awesome people, right? And then shortly towards the end of my tenure at PLDC, I got a phone call from HRC saying, "You're going to drill sergeant school." And I said, "Well, okay." But then I talked to everybody around me and they're like, "No, no, 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 no. You're already in a TDA assignment. You do not need a back-to-back TDA assignment. Don't do it." So I called HRC like a good mentored soldier. And I said, "No, I'm not going to drill sergeant school. I need a platoon sergeant position." Well, Heather Smith got the drill sergeant slot and they sent my ass on recruiting.
No way.
Yes, that was the only time I was pissed off in the military about assignment. I was like, "You MFers, man, you completely hosed me."
So did you do recruiting?
Yeah, kicking and screaming.
Where at?
Well, so they wanted to assign me to Sioux Falls. No, what was it? Yeah, Sioux Falls, Iowa, or whatever the crap it was. And I tell people this all the time. My very first sell as a recruiter was to talk to a guy in my unit or in my class. He was being assigned to Chicago. And he said, "My wife has looked at the schools in Chicago and she's scared to death for my kids to go to school there." And I'm like, and I know that they're not going to be in a bad situation. But I was like, "Oh, yeah, you don't want your kids going to school in Chicago at all." And so I'm like, "Look, let's go call the battalion sergeant major in Chicago and we'll see if she'll swap us." So we talked to her and she asked him one question: "Do you know how to speak Spanish?" And he said, "No, not a lick." And she got on the phone with me and said, "I need female recruiters. We're going to swap you. You're coming to Chicago." So I came home. That was the only benefit to recruiting for me because I got to be close to family. Yeah. So recruiting was tough. I'm going to tell you, 9/11 happened while I was recruiting. We got spit on a few times, had some chalk outlines drawn in front of our recruiting station after that happened. We thought, hey, they're going to send us back to our unit so we can deploy. I called HRC. I said, look, put me in the game, coach. Like, don't. And they're like, no, we're fine. You need to continue your mission. And I said, well, you don't understand how bad it is out here. Like, this is like, just let me go. But I finished it out. I was very successful on recruiting. I learned very quickly that the old crazy way of trying to beg people to join wasn't the way to do it. I just kind of told the truth. I figured out how to discuss with people the benefits of the Army, and if they said no, fine. I walked away, and I just said, well, your loss. That's it. And they're like, I'm not joining your Army. And I said, well, if you don't want to be a part of it, I don't want you there anyway. So see ya. But I was, the last year they made me a station commander. They tried to get me to stay in recruiting, and I said no. Not a chance. I got a long career ahead of me. I'm not staying here.
So Chicago brought you back towards family. Tell me about what family looks like for you. Who lays their head on the pillow and prays for you at night?
So I have my mom and my stepdad, and then my sister and brother. And my sister, she's married with 3 kids. They're all grown now. My nephew is working in the city, and her oldest daughter is second year in college. My youngest niece is going into her senior year of high school, following in, I like to say, my footsteps, and playing fast pitch softball in high school, and hopefully will play in college. Yeah. And then my little brother, who's 8 years younger than me, he's got 2 kids and his wife, and they're I guess they're, what are they, 7 and 5 now? So yeah, I got good folks around me.
Where are you gonna go when you get in your little Class B little Winnebago and take off? Which way are you headed?
My intent is to see all the places I've never seen. My first trip is going to be up to the New England states. It's perfect timing. It'll be like mid to late September, so all the leaves will be changing, and I'll get up there and see all that and eat some good food and hopefully meet some really cool people. I'm hoping I have to come back here every 6 weeks right now for some medical stuff. So what I'm hoping is I can go up the New England states, and if Canada opens their borders back up, I'd really love to kind of loop back around, and come back down through the UP and whatnot. If that doesn't happen, then I'm just going to like skirt the East Coast and do some beach time, because that's where my happy place is on the beach anyway. So
what do you like to do on the beach?
I'm going to sound like a big nerd right now, but I love shelling. I will look for hours for seashells, for hours. And I don't care what I find.
Yay, it's just cathartic to go check it out, huh?
It is. I like wading through the water and just looking for unique shells, and other than that, and then honestly, I love the beach, like strip life, getting into the bars and just talking to people, and every now and then jump on a wave runner and get out there and splash around a little bit.
Oh yeah.
It's just a happy place,
Were you good? Were you a good shot? Were you a good shooter? You talk about being good with PT and stuff. Were you good with a gun?
I was. Yeah. I was always an expert firer. I had my opportunities on the 50 cal, the 249 and all that. I was never in a position where I had to carry those weapons. 50 cal, you're not going to carry it. You know what I mean? But like I had, when I was a private, I take that back. They gave me the M203, and I was pretty good with that sucker. Let me tell you. But yeah, I was always an expert firer. Yeah. So, I prefer to shoot the 9mm. It's much more fun. And when I was in Iraq, it was definitely the weapon of choice because it scared the crap out of the Jindies. like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's amazing how an M4 would not really make them flinch all that much. But if you pulled your 9 mil from the holster, man, they scattered like roaches in sunlight, you know?
Oh wow. Oh
Just
wow.
the way it was.
Amen. 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 So did you have any hobbies, things that you do for fun? You already talked about comedy and stand up,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Do you do other things like that?
So, I do the comedy, and then every morning, you know what I've taken up? I've taken up playing pickleball. Yeah, and I've gotten pretty good at it. I have some
Watch
people
out.
who are like, "Boy, you're pretty competitive," and I said, "Well, if you're gonna do something, you need to give it all you got. That's all that's to it." But it is quite fun. It's a lot more of a workout than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get some pretty good cardio out of it.
Oh wow! So tell me about your spirituality. That we find that many times people say that there's no atheist in foxholes. Is there something that kept you going late at night when it was tough, and when you were maybe on that 11th mile of the 12-mile road march or something?
Yeah, I grew up Catholic, and I would tell you that I'm not throughout my military career, I always, as we all met people of different faiths and religions and whatnot, I always was curious about joining them at a service to know more about their religion. And so I think I don't consider myself like an organized religion type of person. I'm very interested in what drives people spiritually. I always tell people I'm a very spiritual person. I would like to believe that there's kind of a spiritual world around us. I think there's like an energy that drives us, that's kind of, I don't know that there's somebody like staring down on us on a continuous basis or anything, but if I had to liken how I feel about spirituality, it would be more along the Native American studies and how they kind of, you know, pay respect to, the wind and the earth and the sun and everything. So that's kind of where I'm at with things. I mean, I don't think there's a God that's just like up on a cloud going, here's how we're dictating everything. I was able, being stationed in Germany, we went to Israel several times, and I was fascinated by a trip that we took into Jerusalem, and the tour guide and I got into a very deep conversation about Jesus Christ and how he really was a very common man. And it was so interesting, the difference between the Western idea of Jesus and, kind of the Middle Eastern idea of Jesus. So I've always educated myself. I don't have issue with anybody's religions. I think it's fascinating to learn about it. But yeah, I mean, I probably somewhere in my genealogy have Native American blood because that's what I'm drawn to.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. 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 So tell me about your patriotism. Do you have flags everywhere in red, white, and blue and all that? Or are you a little subdued about that?
I At my house that I sold last year, I always had flags out. If you look on my Facebook, I think you'll see I had like 6 flags off my balcony in the back, and I had a flag out front. And that's because, I don't think any of us who served, and I had a flagpole, I had the American flag, I had my POW flag, I would fly the Army flag, sometimes I'd fly my White Sox flag. But being in an apartment, I'm a little, hindered on being able to do that. I I'm not I don't I guess I don't run around, announcing that I was in the military and all that all the time. I have my Army t-shirts every now and then I'll wear to the gym or to play pickleball or whatever. But Yeah, I mean, I'm very patriotic. I mean, when the American or when the national anthem plays on the TV, I stand up. I still do that. But my living room is not, it's not accolades to my military career. In my bedroom, I have a few things that remind me of some stuff, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, I hold on to it. I love America, you know, and when I walk my dog, I get angry when people have tattered flags hanging off their doors, you know. I want to put a note on their door and say, hey, the police department has a drop box so that these flags can be taken, you know, but I don't do it. The post office is right across the street. One funny story, I have a flag and a POW flag. Their flag is all tattered and torn, both of them. I went over there to mail something the other day and I said, that's a disgrace, and I see it every day. I have flags. I will replace them for you. And you know what the man said? He said, well, you know, with COVID. I said, COVID's not an excuse for replacing the flag. So next week, I'm going over to help them put new flags up on their flagpole.
Amen. Amen. Thanks for that. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I have kind of an issue with that too. I like to see nice, crisp flags on the flagpole. I
Yeah.
don't want to see tattered flags.
No. If they're afraid, they need to come down,
Yeah.
you know?
Amen. Amen. If they're afraid, then go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so tell me about the next step in your military career. You know, we talked about PLDC and being an instructor and going to jump school. You
Yeah.
know, tell me about jumping out of an airplane. Was that tough? Did you enjoy that? I mean,
Oh,
weighing 98 pounds, it probably took a minute to come down.
oh, people used to laugh. They're like, hurry up. They're taking forever. So in jump school, you know, I did later on in my career end up getting to jump for a little while because I ended up getting assigned to JRTC at Fort Polk. But I'll tell you about that in a minute. But jump school was hilarious to me. I I went in. Okay, so our first week, I was a staff sergeant. I'm following rules. You guys, you know it. I don't. Again, egg and frying pan, right? I'm going to airborne school. I'm going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I'm going to listen to every single thing you have to tell me, and I'm going to do it. So the first week, second week, there's a sergeant first class in charge of the formation, and he's, you need to do, you know how it goes. The very first jump, they made him first jumper, and that joker was a jump refusal. I was laughing my butt off, and I was about 5 people back in the chalk on the inside of the aircraft, and I'm laughing hysterically. I'm like, this guy has been raking people over the coals for absolutely no reason. All he needed to do was get accountability of us, and he turned it into him being damn, you know, Hitler. And, you know, touche, dude. You know, you're a jump refusal. My black hat was a sergeant. He came up to a couple of us NCOs, and we were like, hey, what happened to Sergeant so-and-so? And he was like, you know, he just said, he told it like it was. He was like, he's a jump refusal. Where'd he go? You'll never see him again. Fair enough. I'm going to jump always. But my very first jump in jump school, you know, fryer drop zone, of course. First of all 5 jumps never hit the sand, not one time. Very first jump, it was a beautiful day. It was nice, no air, no wind, no, just a tiny breeze. And, you know, I felt like I was with the angels, right? I was just like, oh, I had to bicycle a little bit out of the first one. And I was like, that's cool. I landed and I was like, yeah. And my next couple of jumps were great. And then, you know, you got to, what is it, 2 or 3 you got to do with equipment. And let me tell you something. I went to jump school in December, and there was no chance of like makeup days holding us over for a week or anything. These guys were going into Christmas Exodus, and the black hats were like, you people are not holding us up. So their colonel came in and said, it's way too windy to jump. We're scratching the jump. And we're like, all right, we don't know. Okay, just tell us what we need to do. We've been sitting there, my legs are numb. Again, I'm 5'4" and like $110. And, you know, of course, my feet are not touching the ground. So my pack is on my legs. They're going numb. I'm like, just tell me what's going to happen. Let me tell you, the brass left the building and the black hat said, get your asses on the aircraft. We are going to get this jump in. And that jump, I exited the aircraft perfectly. Everything was going fine. Dropped my equipment when I was supposed to. Landed, and let me tell you, it was so windy. I got my thumb in the release, And I went to pull, and all of a sudden, whoosh, and I started spinning on the ground, and it dragged me all the way through the creek on Friar Drop Zone, and it had been raining, so of course I finally popped the canopy. It collapses. I'm good. The parachute's clean. Me, I get up. I've got like muck hanging from my helmet. I go into my pocket thinking, oh, I'll get the Kleenex out and I'll help wipe my face. No, there's like mud in my pockets. And I was like, well, this is how you indoctrinate yourself to jump. Yep. So that was a good time.
Drug through Cadet Creek. That's great.
No, I earned my wings, let me tell you.
Amen. Amen.
It was a good time.
So what was next? Tell me about being a platoon sergeant.
Well, so I came back from recruiting and went right into a platoon sergeant position. And, I mean, my time as a platoon sergeant had its, it had all of its crazy times. I had the overweight kids. I stood in front of formation the very first day in Alpha 143, and the last person to walk up to PT is this big guy. And I was like, how in the world is he in the military? Now, I had just come off recruiting, so I already knew the answer to that question. Some recruiter had given him diuretics and everything else, did a shrinky-dink routine on him, got him into training. Of course, basic training in AIT, you're working out every day, so he probably kept the weight off. And then as soon as he got to the unit, he ballooned up like you wouldn't believe. And my commander was adamant, that kid will go out there and he will run every single day. And I'm like, sir, he's foaming at the mouth when he's running. Like, this is not good. Like, we're going to kill him and you're going to be in trouble. Because I'm going to document that this is a problem, because I'm not going to go to jail over a kid having a heart attack, But that was one crazy thing. But yeah, we went into certifications and stuff like that. My first time, maybe I shouldn't even tell this story, but the challenge in that first platoon sergeant position was they made me the equal opportunity representative for the battery. And it come to find out that my commander and first sergeant were in the barracks on the weekends, knocking on females' doors, and it just blew up into a big mess. I ended up being the person who's the bad guy, right? Because I have to go to the battalion rep, the battalion commander gets involved, and it's like, okay, brigade gets involved, and now I'm the one who gets moved. Well, let me just say this. The first sergeant ended up following me home, and he threatened to kill me, basically. I'll just say that. So they moved me to 3-2 across the street, and everything got exponentially better from there. I mean, but that was about my 10-year mark, and I was going to get out of the military. I was going to leave. I was like, I can't do this. If I can't take care of soldiers appropriately the way the Army trained me, then I just got to go. Amen. And Sergeant Major Ross and Colonel Jenkins, Colonel Jimmy Jenkins? Colonel Jimmy Jenkins specifically was the man who talked me into re-enlisting indefinitely. And and I got promoted to Sergeant First Class. I stayed in the Army, and Sergeant Major Ross pinned me to Sergeant First Class, along with at the time, Major Jen Eichhoff. I'm sure you know that name. Maybe not, I don't know. It's a fairly well-known name. And so platoon sergeant time was fun. I had more fun in 3-2 because we were preparing to go to Egypt, and the engineers came to train us. And we ended up doing really, really well and got a lot of accolades from those guys. And coming from the engineers, being an air defender and not, doing all that like room clearing and all that that was my very first indoctrination into, room clearing and doing all these different things. And to get accolades from those guys saying, hey, you've done a good job, you've done your research, you know what's going on, was really pretty awesome.
Did you find yourself in danger at any point where you were worried for your life, or?
You mean when a first sergeant was chasing me down The highway in El Paso. Yeah, that was scary.
So, okay, so talk to me about this. I want to hear this. So this
So
first sergeant.
I had two times where my physical well-being was threatened. When I was a PLDC instructor, there was an instructor, not I won't name names. The person shortly left the Army after our tenure there, but um, when it was found out that he was sleeping with students, he confronted me in a classroom and shoved a table into my chest and slammed me up against the wall and basically told me that he was, going to ruin my life, and I was like, whatever, that's fine, try. I got it. But that didn't bother me so much because I knew like my other instructor brethren had my back. So at least I thought they did. Anyway, but when I had to report that incident as a platoon sergeant, they moved the first sergeant to another battery in the same building, which didn't make sense to me, but that's fine. So he moved to a different battery. I was still a platoon sergeant in the original battery, but then he would hold formation right behind my Jeep, and he would hold it forever. And he knew that I was standing there waiting until he was done to get into my Jeep and leave. And then I would leave and he would follow me and we'd get on 54. And I mean, thank God for SAIDA briefings, right? I started taking a different route home every day because there was one night that he followed me and he was on my bumper. I would speed up, he would speed up. I'd slow down, he would slow down. I exited and he would follow me. And finally, I lost him this one night. And after that, I went and I told the battalion S3, I said, look, this is what's happening. I can't, like, this man he's calling my phone on Saturday nights. He's doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And I mean, that's when they moved me to 3-2, and that story was never told the right way, and I was an EOL. I was never going to tell that story to anybody, but it took me an extra year to get promoted to sergeant first class because of that. Let's put it that way. And that first sergeant ended up making sergeant major. They moved him to the East Coast. He made sergeant major and he retired as a sergeant major. There was nothing done about what he was doing, So that's the kind of the backstory to where I almost didn't stay in the military. And then enter Jimmy Jenkins, who I owe the world to him. So, because I'm very happy that I stayed in for an additional 10 years, I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for him. He made a lot of sense, and he genuinely gave a shit. That was really what it came down to. So
That's good.
yeah. Oh, probably my favorite job on earth. Really, seriously. And I think all of us who've been first sergeants agree with that. I mean, what greater impact can you directly have on soldiers? When you become a sergeant major, you don't get your hands on. Sergeant Major Jeffries told me that. He said, enjoy every minute of it, because when you become a sergeant major, you'll never experience that ever again. And I'm so thankful that, first of all, Sergeant Major Jeffries, I deployed to Iraq. There's that whole part that we're missing in the story, because there was a part of my career that was not Patriot. It was very air defense, airspace management cell, and all this other stuff. But when I came back from the deployment, so my first 12 to 15 months in Germany, Sergeant Major Jones was the one who brought me over to Germany, because I had been doing training on atom cells across the States, getting people prepared for deployment. And so he said, hey, do you want to come to Germany and deploy? And I said, yes. I have had 1 million people tell me I need to do a deployment. Okay, let's do it. I mean, I've been teaching all this stuff. Why not get out there and put my money where my mouth is, right? And so I got to Germany, immediately attached to 2nd Brigade, 1st Armored Division, in Baumholder. And, they were the very last brigade to transition to a BCT. So they were nothing BCT equipped at all. I mean, they were organic old school. So the colonel had no idea about these atom cell things and everything else. And Sergeant Major Jones said, who better to go than the person who's teaching it to be able to show him what it can do for his unit? So long story short, we get over there and, my guys did an amazing job. That's all that needs to be said. I mean, we just blew it out of the water. And my brigade commander was Colonel White, who's now General White in charge of Fort Hood. But did a great job there, and my guys did. But came back to Germany, and Sergeant Major Jeffries, called me into his office. He met us at the Purple Ramp when we came back. Of course, in Sergeant Major Jeffrey fashion, he probably won't. He'll say I didn't do this, but first thing he looked at was my boots when I came off the aircraft, and I'm like, Sergeant Major, I mean, I'm not going to wear brand new boots. I'm like, come on, give me a break, man. I just came from Iraq, for God's sakes, But anyway, I'll never forget that. And I'm like, he's like, and he kind of was like, I'm kidding, like, relax, you're fine. And but we did leave and all this other stuff. And right before I went on leave, he said, there's 2 positions I'm considering you for, and it's, S3 in a training position, or there's possibly a first sergeant position. And of course, I'm like elated. I'm like, oh God, I want that first sergeant position, like we all do. When I got back from leave, he said, and I told him why I wanted it. When I got back, he said, I'm giving you Charlie Battery, and here's the deal. Charlie Battery's not doing so great, and I think that there's a lot of things that might be getting covered up and blah, 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 right? And well, he didn't say covered up. If he sees this, he's going to be like, I didn't say that. But he was like, you're going to meet some challenges, but I think you're the right person for the job. And I said, okay. Any advice? He said, just go be a first sergeant. Okay. All right. Okay. I got it. Permission to go do it the way I think it needs to be done, right? And I'll tell you, my first commander, he had some challenges, but he was a wonderful guy. His heart was in the right place. And, he loved the soldiers. I just think that 12 months was enough for him. And Colonel Sioka said, okay, dude, you know what? We're going to thank you for your service. And then I got Captain Kevin G. Weary, who, I don't know if you know who he is, but Kevin Weary and I mean, you couldn't have, I don't think the Army's ever seen a better command team. We gelled from day one. From the time he started his 30-day walkthrough, he said, I'm not going to tell you what I think. I'm going to ask you questions, give me answers, but I'm not going to give you feedback until I take command. And right then and there, I respected him. I was like, he knows this isn't his battery yet, but he is literally watching every single thing, so he knows what's up. So I created a binder for him with all of our soldiers' issues, all the different things that we've been through, yada, 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 so that day one, when he released the soldiers, because that's what they do, right? Everybody's dismissed. So he and I can sit down, and I'm going to give you the rundown on everybody and what they're about in this unit from my perspective. And from that day, we just gelled. And I'll tell you, he was an amazing commander. He could motivate soldiers. He was true to his word. He had clear mission, clear intent, and I took that intent and I made sure the platoon sergeants understood it. It was just amazing. We, at the end of my tenure, Germany, of course, was the last battalion to get the PAC-3 upgrades. And Colonel Sioka and then Sergeant Major Foy, because Jeffries moved up to 10th, and 357th, and then it turned to 10th. But they said, you guys aren't going to be able to certify on PAC-3 in 6 weeks. It's not going to happen. We're going to Israel. There's not enough time. We're just going to go to Israel. And Weary was like, no, we're going to be PTDO when we go to Israel. We will be a PTDO certified battery when we go. And let me tell you something. what does the commander have to do when they stand in front of a formation? They have to make the soldiers believe in their goal, right? And he did it. And I stood right behind him with, yep, we're going to do this. And platoon sergeants, platoon leaders were on board, soldiers were on board, and man, we crushed it. First time go, certified that damn battery, Pack 3. Yep, we crushed it. And then my buddy, David Williams, his Bravo battery was right behind us, but we got to certify first. So we were number one. But yeah, that was the best time of my life. Their soldiers were amazing. Even the ones that got into trouble, it was just, it's fine. All right, we're going to roll with it. We got this. We're going to figure it out. It was the best time of my life.
Being a pilot because you fight all together and you can literally put your hands around everybody.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
It is. And, I think one of the challenges is too, in a Patriot unit is sometimes those people that aren't in the van when certifications are happening, they're like, well, I don't really matter. Like I didn't, no, stop. Because if you didn't emplace that piece of equipment, or you didn't cook some food, or you didn't put Band-Aids on people, I made sure my cooks, my medics, my maintenance guys, my supply sergeants, all of them, you have to understand, every single one of you played a role in us being able to certify. So pound your chest and be proud. Period. Full stop.
Okay, so you can't answer this. Okay, can't say your first sergeant job, but if you were to go back just 1 year, where would it be? Where would you go?
What location?
Not what location, what time, what period, if you had to go relive something new, what would it be?
Wow, that's a good question. Because I don't know. I think I'd go back to Germany again, regardless of what job they gave me. I think I'd go back to Germany for sure. Knowing that would lead to, Germany was such a pivotal place. We went to Poland, we went to Turkey, we went to Israel, we deployed to Iraq from Germany. There's so many different opportunities from that pivot point. So that's where I'd go back to.
Amen. Regardless
of position.
Yeah, cool. So how did your time in service end?
Okay, so when I left Germany, I came back to Fort Bliss, and oddly enough, I sat for a month and a half. I was assigned to 11th Brigade, and I sat for a month and a half waiting for them to decide which battalion I was going to go to. I literally was in a hotel for a month and a half. First, I was going to 552. I went there. Sergeant Major said, I don't need any first sergeants. I have everybody that in position. I was like, okay, I was told to come here. Don't know what to tell you. Went back to the S1 at Brigade, said, they don't want me at 552. What do I do? Well, Sergeant Major's on leave, so go to your hotel and we'll call you. Okay. That's weird. I've never experienced that in the military before, but okay. So I literally was in one of the buildings over by the German club. I would get up every morning, go to the gym, work out, come home, shower, put on my uniform, and wait for a phone call. And at 16:30, close of business, I'd take my uniform off and I would go get dinner and get some beers at the German club. So for about a month and a half, that was my life. I wasn't going to get a house. I wasn't going to get an apartment or anything like that because I didn't know if I was going to deploy with 552 or if I was going to go to, 343, who's the training brigade, or they're the test battalion at the time. Ultimately, I ended up at 343 as the HHB first sergeant. And, I did what first sergeants do in that position. And, but kind of towards the end of things, Sergeant Major Ross was kind of getting towards the end of his tenure at 32nd. And he came down to visit one day. He was coming out of battalion headquarters and he stopped me and he's like, hey, how are you doing? And I said, I'm good, Sergeant Major. And I never called upon anybody for any favors. That just wasn't me. I don't know. Everybody talks about, yeah, I called my mentor and he said he's going to hook me up. That was never me. If HRC called, I went. That was it. And so Sergeant Major Ross is walking by and he says, hey, so what's up? He goes, come here, come talk to me. And I said, what's up, Sergeant Major? And he said, are you doing okay? And I said, I'm tired. If you want to know, I'm tired. And he said, well, what's going on with you? So here's a little backstory. In 2009, when I was deployed, I was my hands and feet were swelling up. I was really fatigued. I was having a bunch of joint pain and everything. And we had the neurosurgeon and the physical therapist assigned to our brigade. So I would fly them everywhere. And I told them, like, hey, this is crazy. I don't know what's going on. They're like, okay, look, you need to go see the doc really quick. Doc looked at me. The neurosurgeon looked at me. She said, you don't have any like head trauma, neck trauma or anything. Because of course we're all banging around and stuff, whatever. And she said, you know what? I have a favor that the rheumatologist over on Cropper owes me. And I want to send you over to him for him to look at you. Anyway, I was diagnosed with systemic lupus, which is an autoimmune disease. And he said, it's basically, it's not hurting your internal organs like it does some people. What it's doing is it's attacking your connective tissue. All of your joints are just deteriorating slowly. And I said, well, shit. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Like, I'm not returning early from deployment. Like, that's not happening. So what can I do to stay here for the next, 4 months? So he put me on a bunch of medication and, whatever. I got back to Germany and, Sergeant Major Jeffries I told him about it. And he said, I didn't hire you for your ability to run or anything. I hired you for your intelligence and your ability to, blah, blah, blah. So I got to 343 and I was kind of concerned that it was going to be an issue for the new Sergeant Major, which it kind of ended up being, I guess. Anyway, I was tired, right? So I was killing myself with this crap going on. And Ross says, you know what? I'm moving you to 32nd. And I'm like, oh my God, please do not start issues with this Sergeant Major, because the Sergeant Major I was dealing with was already, he just made life a living hell for all of us first sergeants, and I'm just like, I'll ride it out. Just don't start any issues, please. So Oktoberfest came up and Tammy Coleman, right? Tammy Coleman. So Tammy Coleman comes to my first sergeant's office. She goes, hey, Battle, we're going to be working together again. My commander's door is wide open. And I'm like, what? No, because Ross told me don't say a word to anybody. And I was like, lips are sealed. I'll never say a word. I didn't even tell my commander. Nobody. I didn't even tell my mother. It was that secret. And here she comes. And I was like, Tammy, what the hell? So she leaves. And of course, my commander's like, come here, first sergeant. And I was like, shit. I said, no. I don't know. Like, there was rumors. I have no clue. I don't know what's going on. So we go to Oktoberfest and a few other people start chirping about it. So I find Ross and I say, Sergeant Major, look, I'm telling you right now, I did not tell a soul about this. But before it comes back to you that all these people know, I want you to know right now that Tammy said it out loud in my office and my commander heard it and now it's buzzing around battalion. He goes, that's okay, I'll fix it. He walks up to the Sergeant Major and says, and the colonel was sitting, my battalion commander was sitting next to him. He says, hey, Yeager's coming to 32nd within the next 2 weeks. Prepare.
No way.
Yeah. I was like, oh, thanks for that. Thank you for that.
Amen.
Yeah. I'm like, well, but then I ended up at 32nd. So I was in the G3 at 32nd for a little while. I was going TDY and evaluating units and stuff like that. And I think you did that job for a while, right? You were at 32nd for a little while, weren't you?
I missed out on that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So then my last 3 years, General Dickinson, I would say it was, I don't know, maybe 8 months or so before he changed command with General Fritz. He said, look, I need a master sergeant up here. The master sergeant that was up there was at the 3rd floor in the command group was leaving. And he said, I don't want just a random master sergeant. He said, I want somebody with knowledge of air defense that has kind of been around the block, yada, yada, yada. So there's a get together at the Dickinson's house, and we're sitting at the tables and stuff. And I hung around for a little while, and General Dickinson brought out stogies and, the whiskey, and he's like, do you smoke cigars? And I said, only when I'm trying to fit into the group. I said, but I will drink the whiskey, sir. And so we were sitting there discussing, and we ended up in a conversation about the time, unbeknownst to me, he was the commander of that 108th was brought to JRTC to test Patriot in the box. And he said, I understand that you were an OC at JRTC. And I said, yes, sir, I was. And he said, well, what do you think about Patriot having been brought to JRTC? I said, well, I wasn't there when it was brought. I said, but my SHORED brethren had nothing but negative things to say when I came down as a Patriot person about how they're not bringing that crap back here. You guys don't survive in JRTC. And he said, well, how do you feel about that? And I said, well, when they started talking negatively, I said, sir, I'm the type of person who goes and finds all the relics, the write-ups and everything from when the unit was there. And I would tell you that they never, ever scripted scenarios appropriately for Patriot. Patriot is never going to go into a situation where an RPG can blow up the radar. We just don't do that. I mean, they never provided MP escort. They never cleared roadways ahead of Patriot moving through. All the different things we know we have to do for such a expensive, needed missile system. Anyway, he was like, hey, Master Sergeant, do you know that I was the battalion commander who took Patriot to JRTC? And I said, no, sir, I did not. And he said, well, I'm glad that you agree with my assessment of how they treated us when we got to JRTC. And I was like, okay, cool. Anyway, he tells Sergeant Major Olson, Sergeant Major Olson sat in the seat for Ross when he left as Jeffries was coming in. And Olson comes up and says, well, you're leaving my G3. And I said, well, what did I do wrong, Sergeant Major? He said, nothing. General Dickinson wants you up on the 3rd floor. And I said, oh, son of a bitch. And I went up there kicking and screaming, but General Dickinson was great. He afforded me every opportunity to be a part of every briefing that was going on, because in his mind, he was helping me become a sergeant major. Unfortunately, sergeants major don't see it that way. When you sit on the 3rd floor in command group, you know what I mean? All they see is command group and you're doing an admin job. That's it. And I'm like, okay, sir, well, I appreciate the opportunity. And, when I look back on it, I am grateful that I feel like everything happens for a reason, right? And with all of my health issues going on, things really started taking a turn for the worse with my lupus. And, and that's why I retired, was because of my lupus. It wasn't because, I was ready to leave, but I mean, he gave me an opportunity to contribute to the branch, to all the brigades under 32nd. I really got to help out so many different people, which is what I love to do. I like to take care of people, period. I mean, just simply stated, love to take care of people. You need something, you need information, you want me to find something out, I'm here for you, so my last job was working for General Dickinson, then General Fritz, and Sergeant Major Jeffries as the 32nd AAMDC CSM. And it was a great way to go out,
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So, where are we going to see you on your open mics? I know you're coming down to the Southeast.
Yeah, so I'm gonna head up to the New England states first, and then kind of skirt the East Coast, and then I'm gonna make my way all over the United States. And I've had more than enough people tell me that I need to do like a vlog or something of my travels. So I will be working on getting myself educated on how to make that happen. I'm not super tech savvy, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah. Get you a couple of GoPros and
yeah,
some editing software, and
yeah.
I'm trying to. You can look at my stuff. We're doing All American Adventures.
Okay.
We're doing some of that stuff on another YouTube channel, and then I've always been taking pictures and doing all the
Yeah,
stuff like this, like my whole life. My dad and I, we did all that stuff growing up, so I
that's
enjoy it.
cool.
I enjoy it. Part of what we have to do here before we get off of here is you have to call your unit to attention and sign out.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now. You see this hand?
Yeah,
It doesn't do a salute very well
it'll
anymore.
be okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. I promise.
People get to see just how arthritic I really am.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I love it. Yeah, but that's something that I would like to do. And if there's any stories, like you haven't even really talked about being an OC at JRTC.
Oh, you know
I
what?
was Bravo 31.
I was Bravo 20 Alpha.
Oh, no way.
All right, yeah. So I was in Brigade C2, and I yeah. Why they said Alpha? I don't know. I mean, it should have been November. I guess no. Was I November? I guess I was November, huh?
No, no, you were 20
No, Alpha.
Alpha. You were the senior
No, it's
NCO.
Alpha. Yes, yes, yes. Alpha. I don't know. Brain dead. But yeah, so it was the officer for air defense. God, I can't even remember his name right now. Anyway, it was him, and then I was thrown into OCing for Adam Cell, and then Bill Burgess. I don't know if you know Burgess, but he joined the team. We had a 14 Tango who needs to remain nameless. He was not a great person. He ended up, I shouldn't say that. He had a lot of issues and ended up, being kind of not on the team. But so all the short ed guys, they were still doing sticks lanes and everything. So we were doing observing, controlling through Brigade C2 for the Atom cells in the brigades when they came through. And yeah, it was great. I mean, there was no doctrine for Atom Cell, so we were literally sitting there writing it along with the NTC guys ourselves. And but I love JRTC so much. I was the first female to ever go down there. HRC called me up when I was a first sergeant in 3-2. This is just after Jimmy Jenkins said you need to stay in the Army. All of a sudden, Zelensky is at HRC and she says, we're putting a female at JRTC and I think you're the person to go. And I said, why do you think I'm the person to go? She said, because you don't put up with any bullshit. And I said, okay, let's go. And when I got down there, I will tell you, First Sergeant Leach was my team leader. I love that man to the ends of the earth and back. He welcomed me with open arms. His first words, did he need to say it? Not really. It made me a little more nervous when he said it, because he said, I just want you to know, it doesn't matter that you're a female, you're a sergeant first class, you're in charge, you outrank all these guys here, and that's that. And I will tell you, every single guy accepted me with open arms, except for one, and that he will remain nameless, but he was on the shit list of all of the senior leaders in Brigade C2. So, but yeah, it was very challenging because, of course, I was tossed into the world of SHORAD. And there's a whole new level of, we're going to test you, how tough are you? And thankfully, I was airborne qualified, but I got to jump some of the coolest jumps. You had to jump at least every 3 months because we were on jump pay. And I jumped out of so many different aircraft. It was amazing. I got to jump with special forces guys, ended up friends with them, partied with them, on our off time. Oh, it was so amazing. I loved it so much. Yeah, JRTC as an OC is like, work super hard. And when you're not working, play as hard as you want.
Amen.
My golf game got really good at JRTC.
Are you a golfer?
I am. I love golf. Oh,
That's
yeah,
great.
I love it.
That's great. That's cool. That's cool. I have enjoyed chatting with you. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I think it's really special that you're doing this.
It started with, First Sergeant Maggot. I don't know if you know Robert Maggot.
So I do know Maggot, and when I was OCing, Sergeant Major Rogers was the Fort Bliss, CSM, and he came for a briefing. And no sooner did Bill Burgess and I give a briefing to Sergeant Major Rogers, but we were PCSing back to Fort Bliss to work at Captain's Career Course in OBC. So yeah, Burgess went to OBC, I went to Captain's Career Course, and Maggot that's when he was retiring, I think, out of OBC, right? I think that's where he ended up ultimately retiring out of. And yeah, we had some good talks, and it was cool. I never got to serve with Maggot, but man, those, for me, anytime you get to talk to somebody, even if it's for a day, I learned something, and he's such a cool guy.
Yeah. And when he got his tumor and he couldn't remember, I was like, we've got to tell some of these stories. So I called him up and recorded it, and that kind of got started. And so we're doing it now, and we've got 100 people on the list. It's really cool, and we're scheduling folks, and we got this coin and a box and a thumb drive with this, and then we're gonna try. If you'll get me some pictures, we'll make a slideshow for you.
Okay.
And just kind of have something for your friends and family and loved ones to fight over when you pass away. And
right.
Also have your story told, right? Have your story told.
Yeah, it's funny because I think, okay, so I don't know if you know, but 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with colon cancer.
No, I didn't. Tell me about
stage 4. And so the past 2 years has been brutal. And so to make a long story short, I'm in remission right now, if you want to call it that. My markers are low, and the doctors are like, go have fun, because it's very much at your age and the level of cancer you had, it's probably more of a, it's not if, it's when cancer comes back. And it could be 20 years from now, it could be 2 years from now. So that's another reason why I'm heading out and just traveling and stuff. But right? I mean, look, I'm back in the gym. I had major surgeries to take tumors out and reconstruct and do all these different things. I had an ileostomy, which is basically a little poop bag, so sexy. And that all got reversed in February. The healing process is still going on, but I'm able to get to the gym. I've got a trainer helping me, get everything strong again. And so when you sent me the message to do this, I was kind of in this place of putting some things together, in the event something does happen to me, I need for everything to kind of be put in order so that my family can at least figure it out, So this is really special, it means a lot.
Oh, you're special. You're wonderful. You're a hero. You're a patriot. You stood in the gap, right, with all of us. We all did, right?
Yeah, it's very true. It's funny because it's really hard, I think, for us to see ourselves as heroes. I think we see each other as heroes. We look at our peers as heroes. We don't look in the mirror and go, oh, you're a hero. But lately and the reason why I talk about my cancer is it made me spend a lot more time with my family than I ever have before, day to day. And in those conversations, little bits and pieces of, when I was in Korea, that was, if we're watching something on TV, I'm like, well, when I was in Korea, this crazy thing happened, and my mom said to me, it was a couple days before you invited me to do this. She said, I have learned so much about you in the past year that I never would have known if you didn't have cancer. And I said, wow, well, isn't that some positive things about coming out of being sick, I guess,
Hey, look, we're here for some kind of reason.
Yeah.
We're spiritual beings having some kind of a human experience. We're connected in some kind of way.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I connected with you. First Sergeant Bianna Yeager. I'm so excited. Thank you for spending time with me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you gotta call us to attention,
Oh,
and you
yes.
gotta
Okay.
sign
Oh,
out,
God. I
right?
haven't done this in a really long time. It seems so bizarre to do it.
It gets the heart pumping.
Yeah. So, battery, attention. First Sergeant Yeager out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Isn't
Good?
that
Was that good?
wild to
Okay.
think? Isn't that wild to think about?
Yeah, it brings, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to spend the rest of the evening thinking about all this stuff we talked about. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So what's going to happen from here is I've probably got 6 or 7 in the queue that I got to do a little editing. But
Sure.
within the next week or so, it'll pop up on Facebook and
Cool.
YouTube and Anchor, and share it with your friends and loved ones,
I will.
and then later you'll get your. Let me show you.
Okay.
So we have the box. So here's the coin.
Oh, man, that is so cool.
Yeah, and then a little box for it to go in,
Look
and
at that.
the thumb drive and stuff goes right in there, and
Okay.
it'll have your slideshow and
Okay.
this interview and stuff on it. Just for your loved ones and your family to fight over.
Yeah, cool. Hey, when do you need me to send you pictures by? Like, what's the timeline?
Just any time. Over the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
I've got a lot in the queue. We've probably got 35 or 40 interviews done, but
Okay.
I've only got 10 sent out. Like
Right.
completed.
Okay.
So we gotta that slideshow is what holds me up.
Of course. Yeah, that takes work. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
that's what we're trying to do. I literally would love to have a product that you're proud of, that you could tell your your nephew or niece or cousin or somebody, say, hey, look, this is yours one day. This
Yeah,
is
that's cool.
you're part of my legacy, right?
Yeah.
And your story will be part of it, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I love
so
it.
Thanks. Hey, I love it. I salute you, First Sergeant. Thank you so much for
I
your
salute you
service.
right back.
Oh my gosh. Good night.
All right, good night.